Hello, Croeso, and welcome to the live stream from the Queen's Hall in Narberth. And it is part of Independent Venues Week, so that's why we're coming from here. Well, sort of. It's all being organised for the Queen's Hall, but all of us are in different places around the country. And the Queen's Hall has been in existence now for over 60 years. It must be unique, perhaps even in the UK, as a venue that has put on live music without interruption for over 60 years. We're going to be talking tonight about the past, the present and the future of the hall, and maybe a little bit about other independent venues as well. So first of all, I'd like to introduce the people I'm really pleased to have here with me tonight. I've got Lara Herde, who's the current manager of the Queen's Hall.
So hello, everyone.
I've got Declan Connolly, who's been involved with the Queen's Hall for more decades than he probably cares to remember. He's also been involved with music in Pembrokeshire, gigs and festivals, which I'm sure he will tell us about as the evening progresses. Then we've also got from Hakin originally, Sarah Howells, who loads of you will know from her bands down here, Epic, Jylt, Half-Light and Paper Aeroplanes, and you're now based in London with your current band, aren't you, Sarah? Bryde. Okay, and last but not least, of course, we've got Eros Childs, who grew up in Freshwater East and formed the band Gorky, Zygotic, Mynci. After that band disbanded, when? In 2004, I think. He's gone on to release, a dozen or more solo albums, and he's currently a member of Teenage Fanclub. Welcome, Eros, as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, right. Well, thanks for everybody who's... Do you tune in or do you log on these days? I'm not so sure. But there is an opportunity to join in the conversation. If you write any questions for the panel, Lara, my beautiful assistant here, will jot them down and we'll read them out and try and get people to answer them. But straight on with it. And Declan, let's start with you, because your involvement directly with the Queen's Hall goes back the longest of us here. How did you get involved with the hall, and how important do you think it is for the community?
Well, it's essential for the community, and it always has been. I don't know what happened before the hall was built. It was built from voluntary donations, I believe, and the foundation stone was laid about 1958. Am I right there, Lara?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yep.
You weren't born then. No, but I came to Narberth in 1981, and I came to run a festival with a load of people from the hills. And we lost so much money at this festival that we had to do something to raise some cash. And at that time, the hall looked really shabby. It was very down at heel. It had had a heyday in the 60s, as BB will tell you about. And it had gone downhill considerably, but was still functioning. But there was no equipment. It was still built in the old-fashioned way with a proscenium arch, as if it was going to be a theatre. But it wasn't a theatre. Anyway, so I started putting gigs on that winter, and we managed to go through the winter and do a gig a month and raise enough money to pay off all the debts from the festival.
Yeah.
So that was a great thing that the Queen's Hall did for the first Narberth festival, probably the only Narberth festival, which was called Sugar Be Good. Do you remember that, Malcolm?
I do. I think you had
one here likely to.
You had Cardiff's Cadillacs to come down and play to raise that money.
That's right. The Cadillacs were one of the bands. Yeah.
I know Eros is a big fan of Geraint Jarman, and some of Geraint's musicians played with the Cadillacs, including Lynn Phillips, who played harmonica.
Right.
And so on. You mentioned there about the hall starting in 1958. I think it's worth a brief history lesson. He said in his former teacher mode, I've still got the leather patches on my jacket to prove it. 1958, Ivor Baden was the catalyst behind bringing bands to the Queen's Hall to raise money for Narberth AFC. And by his, it was amazing what he did, really amazing. And by his own admission, he didn't know anything about pop music at the time. But by luck and judgment, he managed to bring down acts that were either in the charts at the time or just entering the charts or about to become famous.
That's right.
And of course, the whole business was totally different then, as I'm sure the musicians here will tell us in a minute about how people made their money. But I mean, people that played here, and Status Quo played the Queen's Hall in the late 60s under Ivor Badham's Deep Purple. And Elton John, of course, quite famously played.
Elton was playing with a band called Bluesology, I think, at the time.
Well, it was actually, the poster, it was June 1970. Mm-hmm. He had his own band. It was the band that went on to make his first record that year, because they were billed as ex-Spencer Davis, which gives you an idea. At the time, nobody had heard of Elton John. Spencer Davis had been a chart act.
Yeah.
And they weren't even the original members of Spencer Davis, like Steve Winwood and Muff Winwood. It was Nigel Olsson on drums.
Right.
He went on to play in Elton's band.
Yeah.
Yes, that was just after Bluesology. I think we might be boring a lot of the younger people. Let's talk to the musicians now. Sarah, great to have you here. I've been a big fan of your music for many years. Now, tell us about your first experiences of performing at the Queen's Hall.
I think I was 17 when I first played the Queen's Hall.
You played for me, I think.
Yes, I did. I was going to say that. I was really, it was a nice surprise that you were going to be on this on this Zoom.
Yeah, it's so nice to see you.
Literally from the beginning, you were a part of it. And Malcolm introduced me that night as well. So
that's right.
And yes, I always remember this because we had, it was Epic, which became Jylt. And it was one of our first proper gigs that wasn't in a local pub or, where we were playing mostly original material. I think we only played one Radiohead cover. And we had 10-watt amps that I could carry around like a handbag all day. They were so small and light. And and we won and we were so pleased. And I think it really, it was a battle of the bands. I don't know if I said that, sorry. But yeah, it was like a Pembrokeshire battle of the bands and we won and we were very pleased. And it really encouraged us to continue to play. So
yeah, well, I was delighted. You put on such a great show that night.
I was one of the judges. I don't know if you were, Declan. You were organising it. I was certainly one of the judges. And you played a song called Butterflies, which, I've said it before, it made the hairs stand up on the back of my neck. It was so moving for a bunch of, you were still school kids then, were you?
Yeah, we definitely were. And we went on to play the Queen's Hall several times after that. And I've always just... maybe we'll talk about it later, but yeah, I've always just come back and it's been my local venue really when you want to play. Yeah, it really is. It's like the Pembrokeshire venue for me anyway.
In fact, let's bring Eros in here now because Jylt supported Eros's first band, Gorky's Zygotic Mynci, at the Queen's Hall in 1996. Was that the first time you ever played the Queen's Hall?
Yes, it was. I think the first time, we were nearby, it was the Children's Festival. I think maybe a year before then, or was that? We played outside in a marquee, I remember that. That was the first time. I remember
Mist supported you and who were a Narberth-based band. It might have been the year after, 1997. It's a bit hazy, but...
I think Nick Turner was there with his sax, I remember that much. Yeah. That was a good evening. And then we played then, yes, it must have been a year later then in the actual hall itself, which was a great thing because the band itself there's 5 members, 3 from Pembrokeshire and then 2 were from one Carmarthen, 1 from Swansea. But it was probably the first time as a band, we'd been going for 3 or 4 years, but it would have been the first time we played the local area, so it was a big thrill to play in front of family every time, to play in front of people we knew was a great thing, yeah.
Yeah, both those gigs I remember. Sorry, the one that Jylt supported you was 2001. 1996 was when you played there as part of what was the West Wales Music Awards then, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right, yes.
I remember you headlining. Remember, Declan, we used to have the West Wales Music Awards in
Yes, that was you and me, wasn't it, Malcolm?
Yeah, and that was a glittering occasion. But it was so divisive. I mean, music isn't a competition, is it? And although we were just trying to raise the profile of the Queen's Hall and West Wales generally.
We were trying to raise the profile of the talented musicians that we had around here that weren't getting much exposure.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if people can see this, but I've got the poster of Gorky Zygotic
great.
playing with Jylt in support at the Queen's Hall. I think that was 2001. And Hubert was your manager at the time, Hubert Matthias of Rockin' PA. I think he did this. Eros, coming back to you, I mean, you've played the Queen's Hall solo as well, haven't you?
Then that was about 2006. I think that would have been just when I started doing my own thing then. Yeah, 2006. That was a good evening as well.
Yeah, I was there as well. I remember that. Always a great show there. I mean, how important is a venue like the Queen's Hall to West Wales in general, would you say, you know?
Well, yeah, it's always important just to have a good quality venue, you know, instead of just bars and people playing solo gigs through solo PA, small PAs. It's good to have a good quality hall with a good quality sound, you know. That's I think every that's very important that Pembrokeshire has.
I mean, I don't think there's many places, as I said at the beginning, in Wales that's had a continuous 60-year history of putting on live music. Let's bring Lara in here because she's been quiet for a while. Yes. Lara's the current manager of the hall. What were your first impressions when you came down to the Queen's Hall in Narberth?
Gosh, now you're talking. So I grew up in Neyland. I moved here I hadn't heard of the hall, to be fair, living in Neyland. And then I moved here when I was 14. So I did the usual kids' parties and sort of community things like kung fu and sports stuff. And then I think my first ever gig, I was about 15. And it completely blew my mind. And I've been in love with like the whole industry ever since. I can't even remember who it was when I was 15, but just some local bands and just the vibe and like being in that sort of close proximity to everyone else who's enjoying it as much as you are. And then having, you know, music that, like you said, makes the hair stand up on the back of your neck or like is really profound. Like it was my introduction to music that genuinely changed the way I thought or how I felt. And I think it's so important to have that locally for young people and musicians as well, and also the tech staff, because where else, if you've got an interest in something like this, where else can you have a go? I mean, if you're going to be a famous singer, I don't know if not everybody wants to be famous, but if you want to be a famous singer, you have to start somewhere. So, you know, like you said, you start in the pubs, but then where do you go? You can't just go straight to the O2 or something, can you? You need to sort of hone your skills on a stage in front of people with proper kit, but where it's all right if you do it wrong. It doesn't matter because everyone's there for the fun, you know. And I think for me, just as a person in the crowd, just loving it, absolutely loving it. I've got zero musical skill, I'm afraid. My skills lie elsewhere. But then the one that knocked my socks off was when Pendulum came here, you know, the drum and bass outfit.
Right.
Just before they got famous. And I've never had such an immersive experience. And at the time I lived in London and I came home for it. And I think I took off. It just blew my mind. It was incredible. And it was at that point I was like, right, this is the industry I want to work in. I can't sing, I can't play any instruments, so I'll just organise, I'll just promote, and that's what I'm going to do. And it's been amazing. And so this is a dream job for me.
Unfortunately, though, because of the current circumstances of COVID, of course, which we're all aware of, it's been a great challenge, I should imagine, for you getting the hall up and running at this time. But you have got a series of live streams planned, and they're none of the others at the moment are talking. There actually are musicians playing, aren't they? Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so we were very lucky to get cultural recovery funding from Creative Wales. Absolutely saved our bacon. You know, we were in a pickle, as are so many other organisations right now across the country. But by providing that funding, they've allowed us to invest in some kit and also given us a chunk of money to allow us to pay artists to come and stream for us and pay the tech staff. And quite rightly too, you know, people need in this industry to be paid, especially now, and especially in this area. So we are thrilled, proper thrilled to be able to offer some work to everyone and then offer live music, albeit in your living room, but it's super high tech, very good sound quality, very good lighting quality. I can thank those guys over there for it. So we're doing our absolute best to generate some kind of fun and momentum and music for people. But I think it's important that we remember that, the creative industry is being decimated at the minute, and people are...
Yeah, we're doing a great job, Lara.
Absolutely. Of course, it's not just about the creativity and the art. I mean, I'm not sure that our government realises how important it all is, arts and creativity generally, but we should never forget there's an income stream. We've got 2 professional musicians here, but it's not just the musicians. Those of us who've been involved with, all of us here have been involved with promoting gigs. You mentioned the tech people, but it's the bar staff, it's the volunteers. All these people are an important part of making a gig come together. Sarah, if I can bring you back in here, how has it impacted upon you the last year as a musician?
Well, just not having that opportunity to play live, it really has, it's just really affects your sort of involvement in music. I'm lucky enough to be able to do lots of my job as an artist still. I can still write, I can still record, I can still release music, been recording remotely and things like that. But, without that feedback from the audience and that connection with the audience that you get in a live venue, it does slightly make you forget it takes the edge off the passion I have for what I do. I mean, I know it'll come back, and whenever I've had a short break from playing gigs and I go back to it, I'm like, oh wow, I remember why I do this. But yeah, I think the people most hit have been people that were touring more than me and making their living exclusively from live music. My band, I pay my band because it's a solo project, so they're paid by other artists as well generally, and they've just had to find other work and other things to do, and the tech crew I especially feel for, because that's specific. Yeah. Like, it's live is their life, and I think it's been really heartwarming when other bigger artists have done fundraisers for their permanent crew. I mean, I'm not lucky enough to have anyone on a retainer or anything, but yeah, that's been amazing. So I just can't wait for it to come back. I hope if we can just get through this time that I think we'll all forget very quickly. I know, I'm not sure everyone agrees with me on that, but I really think we'll bounce back and we'll go back to the way it was. And even hopefully people will appreciate the opportunity to go and experience live music more than they ever did, because it's just going to be so incredible.
I think it will have woken a lot of people up to the value of having live musicians in the room with you. There is nothing like a live show. Zoom concerts are really good as a little fill-in at the moment, but they're not the real thing.
Yeah, what do you think, Eros, about that? The live performance vis-a-vis Zoom? Or?
Yes, I suppose that's the case, isn't it? Yeah, I haven't done any gigs as yet via Zoom, but I think there is a lot to be said for being in the room with an artist and every night being different. It's an exciting thing playing live. That's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, both your shows, you and Sarah, when I've seen you live, although they're very different, they're very visceral. You're always involved with the audience, and it's that two-way thing. And as a member of the audience, I always really, really enjoy it, and I certainly miss that. I mean, Eros, you were about to go on tour with Teenage Fanclub, weren't you? That was planned.
That's right. So by now, the tour would have started. I think it was maybe November and most of December. And the way it was panning out, I think a lot of this year would have been playing live, So that's a shame. Obviously, that's a big, that's a shame that's not happening. But at the end of last year, I needed to keep busy. So I made an album and recorded it quite quickly just to to remind myself what I do, really. Otherwise, there's danger of just forgetting what you're actually supposed to be doing, what you can do. So I did that. That was something.
That's Kitty Dear, isn't it?
That's right. I came out Yeah, we did it all in about a month or so, and it was quite exciting, and it had the kind of momentum of did it very quickly and didn't have too much time to think about it. So it felt a bit like a live, like a bit like being on tour, Well, obviously it wasn't.
I'm tempted to ask you what all that stuff about the Parson's Nose is, but we'll save that for another time. There's for those of you who haven't heard it, and you must, there's 2 16-minute tracks on it. And that's the whole album, Kitty Dear Parts 1 and 2. I've been editing it down so I can play it on Pure West Radio, because I always play your music and Sarah's as well. And that's available from your website. Perhaps you'd like to do a brief advert for that now.
Oh, yeah. That and another probably, I don't know how many albums, 12 or 13 of them. Yes, you can download them all from aroschilds.co.uk. And it's on a kind of pay what you want basis. You can download the WAVs or stream it as well. So you've got the option to pay or not, as the case may be.
That's wonderful. What about you, Sarah? Now, and you haven't had an album out so recently, although you had a single, Ornaments, which I've also been playing on Pure West Radio. But the volume of things came out last year.
We actually released an album during lockdown, during this whole thing. So I'm really glad. I mean, after it taking so long, it going on for so long, that I didn't postpone it, to be honest, because it was nice in some ways to be able to offer some art into the sort of the environment that everyone was finding themselves in, and to be hopefully entertaining a few people. It's a shame not to be able to tour it, but it was still a nice experience to be putting music out. And I have done some shows online, and I think the ones in my living room when I was playing to my phone on Instagram Live, it's just really difficult to.
Oh, I watched one of those. Yeah.
I mean, it's lovely in many ways because you've got the comments coming back and you're able to sort of reply to the messages you're getting and say hi to people. But I think that the live shows, the live streams from the hall have been a lot more special. I watched Laura Marling's gig from the Union Chapel, and that was a really nice experience. It was different, but it was definitely worth her doing that, because I thought it was beautiful. So
I think that's the good thing about the Queen's Hall. I mean, I saw the last one they did last week with Caroline Harrison from Narberth and Abby Jebbers from St. David's, and the quality of the sound and the light was absolutely brilliant. It was, I know, Declan, we're all agreed there's no substitute for the real thing, but the quality of it was much better than people doing it, as you said, Sarah, perhaps on their phones. Or
I had to look at the first one that you did, Lara, with the DJs. I mean, it's not my sort of music, and it didn't last very long, but it looked fantastic. I really wanted to ring Charlie up and say, wow, it really is fantastic.
Yeah, that was a big part of what we were trying to achieve with the live streams, because I think a lot of people, like you say, are quite fatigued with just doing the home streams. So it was important to us to get that full show experience. Well, again, because we wanted to give work to the tech staff and for them to generate something creative, because they're creative people too.
Yeah.
They're bored stiff. My house looked incredible at Christmas because he just covered it in lights because he's bored. But it's about just having that experience, for the viewer, but for us as the staff as well. And we've got this massive, beautiful stage. We might as well use it,
Well, maybe we could, afterwards, Lara, you could talk to these two here about, two expats making a homecoming in some form or other. I'm sure there'd be loads and loads of people anxious to see both of you. I saw Eros's last show, which I put on at the Druidston. Was that 2 years ago now?
Yeah, maybe it was. Yeah, it was 2017, I think that was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Really? Oh, God, time flies soon when you get to my age, Well, that was a great show. Druidston Hotel was absolutely packed.
With a really good venue, isn't it? It's lovely there.
Yeah. But, of course, unlike the Queen's Hall, it hasn't got the capacity. I mean, we could have probably, with Eros's gig, we could probably fill the Druidston twice over, really. Just remind us, Sarah, you didn't say your website, Eros did, for our thousands of listeners who are tuned in or viewers.
People can listen to my album on all the usual streaming platforms, or they can buy the vinyl or the download high quality download from Bandcamp. It's Bryde, Bryde, or you can just Google it.
Okay. Is your back catalogue available there? Yeah, other bands or not?
Yeah, it is. All the Paper Aeroplanes music we've ever written is available on the streaming platforms, pretty much all of it anyway. And then Jylt, I mean, I was in Jylt before the internet existed, so I think, or just at the turn of, I had an AOL account anyway. Really aging myself now, but yeah, if you really try, you can find there's some Jylt videos on YouTube, which I watch once a year and have a little reminisce. So
yeah, we found some Jylt tickets from way back when.
Honestly, the Queen's Hall holds such a dear place in my heart. Like, we had some really good times there, backstage as well as on stage.
Yeah, we won't go into that. What stays backstage remains backstage. I mean, Gorky's Zygotic Mynci, they got up some terrible things. I believe they played badminton in the hall. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we did have Sarah was saying that she remembers between the gig and the sound check that we were playing badminton, rock and roll.
Sorry, Eros, I exposed you.
No, not at all. No, you have to keep fit in this game.
Yeah, and more so than ever. We mentioned quite a few names of people who've played the Queen's Hall, from Pendulum to Elton John tonight, and of course the two people we've got here. But I mean, there was hundreds of people who played here. But I remember one time, especially when Declan was running the hall, that even if you hadn't heard of the music, people would go to the Queen's Hall because they knew it would be a good night. Touches on something what Sarah and Eros have said. It was the hall itself almost that created the atmosphere. And you'd think, oh, Oyster Band run at the Queen's Hall. I had heard of them, but never heard of them. Oh, I'll go along and see. And it was a great night. What do you think of that, Declan? Was that something?
Well, absolutely. You're right there. And it was my kind of policy when I was manager, from 93 till about 2001 or something, we couldn't afford big name acts. But there was a groundswell of people who enjoyed the kind of middle-ranking bands that, and as you say, people came to the hall no matter really what was on, because they knew that it would be good quality. During the 90s, we did a lot of folk rock and a lot of rhythm and blues and blues. That was with the Cat Productions.
Cat House Productions.
Todd Sharpville. He and I put quite a lot of decent stuff on. And it was where I first came into contact with Eugene Hideaway Bridges. And he came back a number of times because he was such a good act. Everybody loved him.
Yeah, I remember you put on Richie Havens, which was, a veteran of Woodstock. That was an amazing.
Yeah, that was one of the last things I did at the hall, actually. And to this day, I'm so proud of that. It was, he was a brilliant guy. There was no knowing whether his heyday was in 1969, for goodness sake. And we were in the, early 2000s at that time. So I had no idea whether he would still be able to produce a show. And he was magical. He had the whole audience in the palm of his hand from the beginning to the end. And then he came out, after an absolute tumultuous reception, and spent about an hour signing albums for people. And he was such a humble guy, covered in jewelry, huge rings on every finger and dangling all the stuff around his neck. Very charismatic.
And Eros, I know Gorky Zygotic Mynci established themselves in the first place on the Welsh language music scene. And in some ways, it was easier to get on media in Wales than it was perhaps in England, because but then the break into the English language scene was harder, you know. How important do you think the Welsh language music scene, rock scene, has been to help you?
Oh, very important indeed. Yeah. Like you say, it was. We were still in school. We were 15 or 16, and it was a case of we could start recording in proper studios straight away for radio, for Radio Cymru. You know, we were, and also for television. So we were, only 16, and we were making videos for SLC and things in the summer, and it was very good money as well back then. So it was a great way of, kind of just blunt start really.
Yeah, I think that's one of the advantages in Wales, and a disadvantage in some ways. But an advantage, if you were in Newcastle and 16 years old, you might not have been able to get on the local media. But then to get out of that, people would say, oh, they're singing in Welsh, which is rather ironic because Declan is famous for putting on world music acts, which he's too modest to tell us about probably, but I'd go and see acts at the Queen's Hall who'd be singing in, I don't know, Serbo-Croat, French, Martian, whatever they were singing in.
I wanted to...
It was a good night. But
diversity of the country, not just of Wales, but of UK in general. And there were so many wonderful African, Indian, Czechoslovakian and so on artists, playing around the art centres of the UK, and I just had to have them. I just absolutely loved going down that road.
Yeah, but it always amused me or annoyed me in equal measure that people would like these acts, but they couldn't understand perhaps a word what they were saying, and it wasn't necessarily that important because music's an emotional thing as well as an intellectual thing, but they would criticise Welsh.
You can't help dancing to people like the Bundu Boys or Kanda Bongo Man. And
Declan, someone's just written on the comments, Miles, I played football with the Bundu Boys in the Queen's Hall.
Yeah.
Well, I think that trumps badminton era. But, trying to get over is I think the Welsh language music scene, maybe, I don't know what you think about it, was put down because people were singing in Welsh, but people would happily listen to other languages,
Right, yeah. We never encountered any hostility, I don't think. It didn't seem to be a problem. We got a bit of hostility when we started sticking English songs on albums or playing English songs live from Welsh speakers. Occasional bit of friction, but nothing violent,
I mentioned Geraint Jarman earlier on, and I've got a box set of his albums. I did start learning Welsh this year, but it was kiboshed because of COVID. And I can't understand all the words on the albums. The music is terrific. But it says in the notes with that box set that he got adverse critical reaction when he played in an English castle once.
Right,
he lost a lot of fans there.
Yeah, right, yeah. Mm.
But Sarah, you never had that problem. Everything you've done has always been in English, isn't it?
Pretty much. I was lucky enough to do some backing vocals with my friend Al Lewis, who's kind of a star of the Welsh music scene, actually.
Al Lewis.
Obtained that position over many years. But I was sung on one of his Welsh albums, as well as because I was doing a lot of English language stuff with him as well. So that was really fun. We did like Eros was saying, we did some really great TV stuff for S4C. One up on a beach up north with rugs and outside. It was amazing, and we're really lucky in Wales to have that opportunity. It would be cool if they occasionally had some English language bands, Welsh English language bands, but I totally get why they don't. So, it was a really great opportunity, but equally, the quality of the Queen's Hall, just to bring it back, is again, I was just thinking we're really lucky with that because you get local venues, but you don't always get one with, the stage is quite big. It's a really big capacity hall. And when you do fill it, which happened quite regularly for us and lots of other bands that played there, not necessarily, because you're a huge deal, but because people love going there. And that is such a good experience. And people really get to flex their muscles there. It's not just, you're not playing at it, you're doing, a real gig. So it's amazing, yeah.
I know bands do really appreciate the opportunity to be on such a big stage with the PA and the lights and everything, set up, and of course an appreciative audience, which makes me think a bit now about the future, Lara. I mean, I know we don't know what the future is going to be if and when we get out. Well, hopefully there is a when we get out of this pandemic. What do you think about the future of the Howells, really?
Right, so we've just had a question from Valentine, and it's related. So I'll read the question and I'll give you my thoughts on it. So he's written, the big question: would you hazard a guess as to when you think live events will happen again, and what shape do you think it will take as far as audience and distancing goes? So the first thing is, I can't tell you when. I don't know when. It depends on loads of factors. There's no magic bullet. Even if everyone has the vaccine, it's still not going to be enough. I don't think, to completely secure somewhere like a venue when you're up close and sweaty with people. I think it'll have to be almost like a hybrid solution. I think it'll be a combination. Certain people will have vaccines. There might be rapid testing. We'll all be wearing masks. I think that's a given in venues, regardless of whether we do socially distanced ones or not. There's some pretty interesting stuff going on in Europe at the minute. They've been doing test events. Obviously, their COVID rates aren't as severe as ours at the minute. So I know the Welsh Government are looking at test events, but we won't get there until we're in Tier 2. And I don't think we've ever been Tier 2. I think we smashed straight in at 3. So whenever that could be, I don't know. But there are some interesting events, and they're promising results. For instance, in Germany, they did a control group. So those people just went about their daily lives. And then they had 400 people-ish. And then 400 people came into a venue, didn't socially distance, had masks. You could only take it off for your drink. And I think they were tested on the way in. And nobody caught COVID in that venue. And 2 people did in the control group. So it's promising. I'm optimistic that we will get there. And I think it will be through almost like a hybrid solution. So Mark David from the Music Venues Trust describes it as almost like a Swiss cheese solution. So if you imagine wearing a mask as a slice of Swiss cheese, and it's got some holes in, so things might get through. But then if everyone's washing their hands and everyone's had their vaccine and everyone gets tested on the way in, it's a combination of things that will keep us safe rather than just one answer. So to answer Valentine's question, I don't know when.
Sounds like more work for you and your staff, though.
Yeah, but Declan, my motto here is anything's possible, and I am optimistic. I think we'll get there. I really do. I just think everyone just needs to hold on and keep supporting venues and don't forget about us. Please don't forget about us. We'll get there.
Russ and Sarah, what do you think as musicians? How do you see your future career? Is there a future for you at playing live, do you think, in the near future?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Sorry.
Not the near future necessarily. I have one booking for a festival that was rolled over from last year, which is not a huge festival up north in Yorkshire. So I hope that they might try and continue to have it, but I'm not sure. I'm actually, sadly, I'm postponing my March dates to next March because we just didn't want to reschedule again. It's mainly because it was going to be, my London date was going to be May last year, then it was September, then it was March. And I just couldn't face shifting it to October and then doing a socially distanced gig. I just felt like I wanted to try and postpone it and look forward to something that would be more resembling what I'm used to. But that doesn't mean I won't play between now and March, because I go crazy if I don't play for a whole 2 years in a row. That would be mad. So, yeah, we'll do something, but I have literally nothing booked right now, I'm afraid.
Was that festival in Yorkshire outdoors or indoors, Sarah?
Yeah, outdoors. It's under the stars, underneath the stars. Kate Rusby's festival. Quite folky for my sort of music. But I was
Kate Rusby played the Queen's Hall.
Oh, I think she's amazing. So yeah, I would love to do that gig. Maybe it's small. I think it's quite popular, but maybe it's small enough that they can do something with it. But it's just, I think every incident, every situation's different, and it depends on the organisers and what they want to put themselves through, because it seems like a lot of work, like we were saying. And with a festival, I can't even imagine. Yeah. But then outdoors, maybe it's safer by July.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yes, you know, I agree with what Lara says and Declan's comment, how hard work it is. I thought it might possibly be easier to come back with outdoor festivals first, but of course, because of the weather. What do you think, Eros?
Yeah, this year, well, there are gigs booked for, well, not my own gigs then, but gigs with the Teenage Fanclub. So there's a tour in September, and then there's gigs that have been moved from last year. Well, last year to the start of 2022. So hopefully those will happen. You know, that's the hope anyway. Yes, so fingers crossed. But yeah, it's I suppose, yeah, like Lara was saying, it's a case of just holding on now, isn't it? Yeah.
What do you think, Declan?
Still promoting gigs, by the way, Malcolm, and they're all jazz, of course. Because I'm limited to jazz these days.
Why is that?
Appropriate for my age, don't you know? But we kind of got a pencil in on September. We're hoping to do a September jazz event.
I think that's realistic, Declan.
Yeah.
I actually have tickets to a gig as well. I didn't want to be the pessimistic one. I've just bought tickets to see Lanterns on the Lake in Earth in Hackney in October, and so I want to go.
Well, I've got tickets for a gig in September as well. Robin Hitchcock, who I'm a big fan of. Yeah. And saw him last time. He lives in America now, so I'm fingers crossed for that. And when the Queen's... Now, here's a question for all of you, and you're not allowed to answer myself. When the Queen's Hall opens again, who would you like to see to play in there? You know, some big event to start it off. Declan, you go first.
Oh, no, don't ask me.
You're allowed to have jazz.
That's a clue.
What about you, Lara?
I tell you, I do remember somebody. I'd love to see This Is the Kit.
This is the Kit.
Good choice. Me too.
They're not jazz.
So what? I'm not limited to jazz.
Yeah, I thought you just said you were.
It's just that I happen to concentrate on jazz.
Sorry, everybody, it's two old men badgering each other. What about you then, Eros? What do you think? How should the Queen do?
Too much choice, isn't there? That's what I think now. Oh, I can't. I can't. Who would be good to go and see? I wouldn't mind seeing Robin Williamson again. It's a year since I saw Robin Williamson. I'd like to see Robin Williamson again. Yeah.
Well, what about together? You were at the Lawn Festival, I know, because I was in the audience with you watching Mike Heron, and we were.
That's right. Yes.
We were in the
queue. Both together. Why not? Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Back together, the incredible string band.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, yeah, they've got connections with Pembrokeshire as well. They were holed up in the in Newport when they made an album, and a friend of mine, Ian McDowell, you may know him, Declan, he was working in the bank at Newport at the time, and this dishevelled old hippie came in to cash a huge cheque, and they were all very suspicious. And it was Robin Williamson, you know, just got the cheque. And nowadays, you know, dishevelled old hippies have got all the money, haven't they? Just like Richard Branson. Sorry, I won't mention politics. Sarah, who would you like to see?
Oh, God, I was just looking at my Spotify to see if I could think of anyone. And all I could think of was Australian and American bands, which is slightly too optimistic for... it's literally like Paralysed by...
All right, sorry, I shouldn't...
Can I play, please? I don't see myself as like that amazing comeback that you would have, but I would love to be one of the people that play. So yes, please book us as soon as we're allowed.
Yeah, well, I think a Sarah Howells, Eros Childs double bill would be we probably couldn't afford Teenage Fanclub.
We'd love to support you, Eros.
I'll support you. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you are, Lara.
Double billing.
I got disconnected then. Sorry, I missed that, but I'm back now.
I said double billing of Eros and Sarah, whatever form it
yes,
might
please.
be.
That would be grand.
We'd love that. The hall.
So that's my answer. My answer is that, please. In fact, genuinely, I would love to see, when we talked about Jylt and how it was local bands, but it was always full. I really want that era back. I want that feeling that like you just want to be here on a Friday or a Saturday. And I think post-COVID we'll get that back again. I really do. I hope so. People took local live music for granted almost. When I first started this job, it was so hard to mobilise people to get into this building. But
that's a very good point. I think people were getting very complacent. I mean,
Yeah.
I produced a gig guide for over 30 years in print and on air, and like there was dozens of gigs every week, and most of them though in pubs, which it was free,
Yes.
and people would go in there and chat and not take notice of who was performing, and people would say, "Oh, Queen's Hall, I'm 10 quid to see."
10 quid. Cool.
And they'd go out to the pub and have 3 pints and a bag of chips and spend more than that anyway. People really undervalued live music, I think.
I think so too. And I think hopefully this will be the turning point now. I hope.
Yes, it is.
I think that time will come back. Anyway, I think that's about talking about time coming back. I think our time is running out here now. Thank you very much, all of you, for chatting. And I hope a few people have been watching and found this interesting. Sarah, Eros, Declan, it's been great chatting to you. One day we'll meet in the flesh again. I look forward to that double bill in the Queen's Hall. But before we go, Lara, tell us a little bit about the live streams that we can experience if you've got planned for us.
Okay, cool. So they're all done via the YouTube channel you're watching through now. It's going to be pretty eclectic. We've got Dan Bettridge coming up on the 5th February. It's beautiful, beautiful music. He's just released a new song. I thoroughly recommend that. In fact, this Saturday coming, if anyone's into drum and bass and electro, we've got Drummer Therapy, which is a local outfit, drum and bass outfit, versus Silric Audio, which are really interesting off-key electro music. So I'm quite looking forward to that. We've got Jodie Marie. We've got Rona Mack. We've got Rosie Kale. We've got absolutely loads planned with you, Malcolm, haven't we? So who's first?
I've got a BB Skone presents. If I can sort of hoist... No, you don't hoist a petard. What do? You blow your own oboe or something. I've got a series of events coming up with, first of all, it'll be George Whitfield and Paul Hayes, a kind of folky night. Then Lowry Evans and Lee Mason, which will be a bit of Cymraeg, thankfully, as well as English. Then we're going to have a country-esque night with Josh Bedis and Ian Calford, whose father was called the Welsh Johnny Cash. And then to cap it all off, we've got the James Oliver Band, a night of tremendous rock and roll, rockabilly, twang and twizzle rock extravaganza.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that all those dates will be on the Facebook page, won't they?
They absolutely are. So they're on our website, on our social media. So our website is www.thequeenshall.org.uk, and all our social media handles are at Queen's Hall Narberth. It's nice and simple. Keep it simple.
Okay. And everybody out there, normally at this stage, I'd say something like, please support live music. Please support the artists and the venues, because they need us economically, and we need them, because without art and culture and music in our lives, what's the point?
What's the point? I agree.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye. Lovely to see you.